Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain fell gently on the cemetery, turning the freshly turned earth into dark mud. The guests, dressed in black, murmured among themselves while the deceased's daughter, Emily Carter, collapsed in her chair, her face wet with tears. Suddenly, a piercing scream pierced the assembly. A man in rags, his face marked by years of misery and solitude, appeared out of nowhere and advanced towards Emily. "The murderer is behind you," he yelled. An icy silence fell over the crowd. Eyes instinctively turned towards the man behind the young woman. But everyone remained frozen, unable to move, torn between fear and disbelief. Emily, her hands trembling, turned slowly. Her heart was pounding. Behind her, a well-dressed man, whom she barely knew, seemed strangely calm. His dark, piercing eyes reflected a blood-curdling coldness. The homeless man stepped forward again, raising a trembling finger towards him. "I saw him. I know what he did." The guests murmured louder and louder. Emily felt a cold sweat trickle down her back. Was it possible? Was her father's murderer standing there, right before her eyes, among all these people? And as the well-dressed man offered a slight smile, Emily knew her life had just changed forever. Grief had transformed into a deadly investigation, and she would have to uncover the truth before it was too late. Emily Carter gripped the back of her chair, breathless. Her gaze remained fixed on the man behind her, the one the homeless man had just accused. The driving rain on the cemetery seemed to amplify the heavy silence around them. "Who are you?" asked Emily, her voice trembling but determined. The man, elegant and cold, stepped forward slowly. I don't know what you're talking about," he replied in a calm voice, almost too calm to be honest. The homeless man burst into laughter, a dry, raspy laugh that startled several guests. "Don't lie," he yelled. "I was there. I saw it. You did that to his father, and you thought you could get away with it." A shiver ran through Emily. She remembered her father, Robert Carter, an upright and respected man, but one who had always seemed to have enemies. Who could have wanted him dead? And why did this man in a suit seem so familiar? The man smiled, almost mockingly. "Do you believe what this poor homeless man says? He's always been a liar." Emily felt anger rising within her. "Maybe, but I'm going to find out the truth," she murmured, more to herself than to him. At that moment, the police, alerted by the commotion, arrived on the scene. The homeless man was restrained, but he continued to shout, "He killed your father. You have to see him." Emily turned back to her father's body, then to the man behind her. Something in his eyes told her the homeless man was telling the truth. And for the first time since her father's death, she felt a mixture of fear and determination. She had to uncover the secret everyone wanted to keep. As the ceremony tentatively resumed, Emily knew she would never be able to lead a normal life again. The truth about her father's death would plunge her into a world where nothing was as it seemed. And somewhere, in the shadows of the cemetery, the murderer watched, confident, unaware that his game had just begun. The day after the funeral, Emily couldn't sleep. The homeless man's words still echoed in her head. "The murderer is behind you." Every image of his father, every happy memory, was now tinged with fear and suspicion. She decided to begin by investigating discreetly. Her father had been a respected man in the community, but Emily knew he had also had his share of conflicts. To understand, she needed to delve into the past, to question those who knew him best. She started with her father's office. The files were neatly arranged, but as she leafed through some financial papers, she noticed several documents related to suspicious transactions. Her heart beat faster. Her father wasn't just an honest man, he seemed to have discovered something someone didn't want him to reveal. Then she remembered the man in a suit she'd seen at the funeral. Something in his eyes had set off alarm bells within her. She jotted down his name, Jonathan Hayes, a longtime business partner of her father's. But Emily had heard rumors. Hayes had a reputation for being ambitious and dangerous. She began searching for information, discreetly questioning former colleagues and friends of her father. The answers were vague, sometimes contradictory, but a common thread emerged: Hayes had been in direct conflict with Robert Carter in the weeks preceding his death. As Emily gathered these clues, the homeless man suddenly appeared at her door. Still dressed in his rags, he looked at her intently. "Listen to me," he said. "You can't trust anyone around you. There's a traitor, and he's ready to do anything to keep you from ever learning the truth." Emily hesitated, but something in the homeless man's voice convinced her to listen. She understood that, to discover her father's murderer, she had to ally herself with him, and plunge into a world she could never have imagined. As she left her apartment with the homeless man as her impromptu guide, Emily felt the weight of danger pressing down on her shoulders. The hunt for the truth was only just beginning, and she already knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Emily had never felt such a rush of adrenaline in her life. With the homeless man by her side, she slipped into the city's dark streets, following clues her father had unknowingly left behind. Every street corner seemed to hold danger, every glance could conceal a threat. The homeless man, who introduced himself as Moses, led her to an old abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. "This is where your father had a meeting with Jonathan Hayes during the last week of his life," he whispered. Emily took a deep breath and went inside. The air was heavy, thick with dust and the smell of mildew. She searched the abandoned offices and broken drawers until she found a metal box hidden beneath an unstable floor. Inside were incriminating documents and photos, evidence that Hayes had orchestrated a series of financial manipulations to take control of Robert Carter's companies. As Emily examined the documents, footsteps echoed behind her. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned sharply and saw Jonathan Hayes, impeccably dressed, staring at her with an icy smile. "Emily. I must admit I'm impressed," he said calmly. "But you've gone too far. This evidence will never be used against me." Before she could react, Hayes rushed towards her. Emily felt panic rising, but Moses emerged from the shadows and intercepted Hayes, holding her back long enough for Emily to escape with the box. They both ran through the alleyways, breathless, their hearts pounding. Once safe, Emily opened the box and examined its contents. The evidence was irrefutable. She now knew that Jonathan Hayes had killed her father to protect his financial secrets. But she also understood something more dangerous: Hayes would stop at nothing to protect his truth. Emily then felt a cold anger surge through her. She didn't just want justice for her father, she wanted the murderer to pay, no matter the cost. And as the rain continued to fall on the city, Emily made a silent vow: she would hunt Hayes down to the very end, even if it meant plunging into the deepest shadows. Emily had spent sleepless nights preparing her plan. With Moses' help, she had gathered all the necessary evidence to incriminate Jonathan Hayes. But she knew the final confrontation would be dangerous. Hayes was unpredictable and ready to do anything to protect his secrets. She met Hayes in his luxurious office, a cold and impersonal place that perfectly reflected its owner. As soon as he saw her enter, a cold smile spread across his face. "Emily. I must admit your persistence is touching," he said, his voice honeyed but menacing. Emily clutched the box containing the evidence against her. "It's over, Hayes. I have everything I need to arrest you for my father's murder and all your financial shenanigans." Hayes burst out laughing. "You really think that'll stop me? You're alone, and I'm untouchable." But Emily didn't back down. With determination, she opened the box and displayed every document, every incriminating photo. The evidence was overwhelming, and even Hayes knew he wouldn't be able to get away with it. Suddenly, Moses, who had been discreetly following Emily, entered the office and closed the door behind him. Hayes recoiled in surprise. Who are you?" he stammered. "Someone who does not allow justice to be flouted," Moses replied firmly. Emily then felt the rage and grief of losing her father transform into strength. "You killed my father to protect your secrets, but today, the truth is coming out. You will pay." Hayes tried to flee, but the police, alerted earlier by Emily and Moses, arrived just in time to intercept him. The arrogant man was arrested, unable to deny the overwhelming evidence. Emily looked at Hayes in handcuffs and felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. Revenge wasn't what she was seeking, but justice for her father, at last, had been achieved. As she left the office, Moses turned to her. "Your father would be proud of you, Emily. You found the truth despite all the obstacles." Emily nodded, a mixture of sadness and relief on her face. The road had been dark and dangerous, but the light of justice had finally broken through. And in that moment of silence and victory, she knew that her father would live on forever through his courage and determination.